moments you get to relive in Assassin's Creed. Find out the true history behind the Assassin's Creed games by following the Echoes of History podcast on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Laura Cathcart-Robbins, and I am the host and creator of the podcast, Only One in the Room. Every week, my co-host Scott Slaughter and I invite you to join us and lose yourself in someone's Only One story. The Only One in the Room has a wide variety of guests, from prisoners to abuse survivors to swingers. With 21 seasons and counting, we guarantee that Only One in the Room will have a story that you'll connect with. This podcast is for anyone who has ever felt alone in a room full of people, which is to say that this podcast is for everyone.
Realms of Peril and Glory.
From one-shots to campaigns.
Indie games to established titles.
Join Liz,
Laura, Zach,
James,
Maddie.
Naomi,
and Pip.
I rolled a natural 20!
Yeah!
And a rotating cast of incredible guests.
I am Johnny Chiodini.
Just William Cartwright.
And Grant Hammett.
Charmony Bundell.
As we weave thrilling new stories with gorgeous sound design and beautiful original music.
Search Realms of Peril and Glory wherever you listen to podcasts.
With something like 5 million podcasts, finding a really good one can take a ton of time. So let me recommend one. It's called Something You Should Know. I'm the host, Mike Carruthers, and in each episode we discuss topics that can be really helpful, like how to read people better, the psychology of crowds, or fun things like the story of Legos, or why you probably wouldn't be here if it weren't for horses. Something You Should Know is the name of it, wherever you get your podcasts.
If I were to put money on it, I actually would think Metaphor has the best chance, I think. And I think that's because this is anecdotal, of course, right? But I'm seeing a lot of people who never touched a Persona game try this out and like, yo, I can't believe like a game is doing this. And someone who's, okay, yeah, see? And I think when the game came out, when codes went out, like a lot of people gave it a shot and then started to see like, oh, this is what Atlas has been doing this whole time. It's a lot more streamlined, a little bit more approachable than a Persona was. Been playing Persona games for a very long time, so when I played Metaphor, I'm like, oh, cool. I'm seeing the evolution of what Atlas has always done, whereas other people like kind of blown away by this being their first impression of what Atlas does. So I think there's a sense of freshness to it that I don't see because I've been playing these kinds of games for a long time. So I think Metaphor has impressed a lot of people who wouldn't have otherwise looked at an Atlas RPG. So I think that's what it has going for it. And across the board too, I mean, when you look at, Metacritic, other reviews from other sites, reviews from sites who are involved in the voting process, across the board, people are like, yo, Metaphor, they were cooking. And I do think it feels like it has the least baggage out of all the other games I'm looking at. Not that like Elatro has baggage per se, right?
There's controversy around it. I know.
Sure, yeah. But like Metaphor is, it's a complete vision. Like even for Atlas, who I think is very good at like, hey, this is what our game's about, and this is what we're trying to say with it. Metaphor is like the most. That game has a clear vision about what it's about, how you engage with that world, who the characters are, and how it provides that experience of you seeing what that world is and what it's about. It is across the board. It feels like, and no game is flawless, right? But I look at it like this feels like every single aspect of this game was polished and taken care of and really well thought out. So, like, not only is it probably going to be my number one pick, but I do think a lot of people across the board are feeling the same way about it. So, yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, make a good case. I will say when as the previews editor at IGN, when our previewer turned in their script and footage for the preview, when I took a look at this game, like really sat down and take a look at it, just visually, this game is stunning to look. And I'm not just saying like, as I don't know, I'm trying to describe it well. It's not just like it has super realistic graphics. It's not like, but it's the entire visual style and animation, like just everything about how this game is to watch with your eyes it's beautiful to look at, if nothing else. And I know there's plenty else going on, with this game. If it weren't 100 hours long, that like because that alone kind of keeps me away from it. Like I just don't. I know I don't have 100 hours to sink into it. But man, yeah, it is quite a stunning game from a visual perspective.
Can I ask the panel who they think the fans will vote for? They account for 10% of the vote. Who
Well,
do
this
we
is
think?
easy, right?
Is it?
Well, what do you think, Destin? I'll start with you on this.
Well, I think the community vote is going to go to Black Myth.
Me too.
One reason. China is a huge fan of Black Myth Wukong.
Yeah.
It popped off in that market. PlayStation 5s were selling out. People like they sold so many PlayStation 5s in China and in Japan that just to buy this game. It was just to buy Black Myth Wukong and play it. And the social media presence alone for this title was unlike anything I've seen in years. So I think the Billy votes are going to go hard for Black Myth Wukong, and because like just they really liked how the studio approached scanning real world environments and bringing them into the engine and all of that. I think it's going to get it easily.
Stelly, Michael and I were already nodding along. Are you agreeing with that pick as well, or do you think the fans might pick something else?
I feel like Black Myth is a pretty good bet.
I could see the play. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
I could see the PlayStation community going hard for Astrobot or Final Fantasy though. Like that's the only one. Those are the only two where I'm like they already have a voracious fan base that could like really go hard for those particular entries. But I've never seen social media presence like I did for Black Myth.
Yeah, I feel like it between Final Fantasy and Astrobot, I think it would be Astrobot just because I think that was a little bit more appealing to the general public on PlayStation because, you know, with Rebirth, you had to have played the first part and not everyone is into Final Fantasy. I know, crime, but, you know, it's one of those things like Astrobot was there for like families, younger people to play, you know, with other just general public. So I feel like Astrobot would definitely win over Rebirth, but I feel like Black Myth is probably a good bet just because it was beautiful. I mean, the mechanics were really good as well. So I feel like that one could take it. Honestly, as long as Elden Ring doesn't win, I'm good. So.
Yeah.
I'm going to be petty.
It's allowed. We allow it. Well, there you go. I mean, that is the Game of the Year awards nominations. IGN, ours. I don't know when ours come out, but we'll talk about it when the time comes, and we'll see if and how our nominee list differs from the Game Awards list. All right, next up, this was a leftover from N7 Day a couple weeks back. I confess I haven't been able to get to this on the last couple of episodes, but I wanted to talk about it now because we've got some extra time on this podcast. The Mass Effect TV series, and Destin's hackles are immediately going up, is now officially in development in Amazon. Variety broke the news back on N7 Day. And let's see, let me get to where are the details here. Let's see. IGN has confirmed the news with Amazon as well. Daniel Casey is going to write and executive produce. Daniel Casey worked on 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is a movie I liked a lot. Other producers include Michael Gamble, who from the game side, who's leading development on the next Mass Effect, and Avi Arad, who's working on the upcoming Legend of Zelda live-action movie, and of course was kind of the Marvel whisperer back in the day before the MCU really rounded into form. Kareem Zreik / Cedar Tree Productions are producing under an overall deal with Amazon and MGM Studios. We don't know too much else about the series other than those names involved. At the moment, the only plot detail Amazon is letting slip is the fact that it's, quote, based on the best-selling sci-fi video game franchise from EA. So it's still unknown if we're going to get a straightforward adaptation here or some other original story set in the world of the games. Well, I have to start with Destin on this. What are you excited, Destin? Are you very nervous about this? Are you pessimistic? Are you optimistic? Where are you with the idea of Amazon doing a Mass Effect live-action television show?
I think Amazon has done a really good job of adapting things like Invincible. They adapted The Boys quite well. And I am curious to see what they do with the Mass Effect franchise. My question is mainly, what are they going to be adapting? Are they just going to adapt the game? Because that introduces problems of, okay, well, are you going with male shepherd or female shepherd? You know, because you can pick either. Are they going to do a side story one-off about some character that maybe we don't know as well? And it's just sort of leaves me wondering, how do you tell the story of Mass Effect without betraying our personal experiences with Mass Effect, for lack of a better term? You would have to tell like a Garrus story when the invasion happened or whatever, and the Turians and the humans were fighting. So it has to be something within the universe, but not within the actual main timeline of when Commander Shepard was involved, or the Reapers even, like, because you would have to at least mention Shepard in passing. There's a lot of great lore to pull from in the Mass Effect universe, though, thankfully, because Asari lived for like 1,000 years. So there's a lot of ways they could do this.
Stella, how about you? What are your initial reactions to this, and what do you want to see them do with it?
I mean, I love all things space related. Also, Mass Effect is great, so I'm excited. I keep forgetting that there's so many live action adaptations coming. I mean, we've got this, and then also I forgot yesterday, and then someone posted like one of those scenes of How to Train Your Dragon also, and I was like, oh my god, is this just the year of live action adaptations? Anyways, I honestly, I think if they follow a route like what The Last of Us is doing with HBO and following the series, I feel like that's a really good way to do it. There's already so much good story written. Players, fans of Mass Effect can relive this through real people, and then I think introducing people to this world, it's also not awful, right? I think there's a great story to follow here too. So I don't know. I feel like following the games like The Last of Us is doing is probably the better call. And I feel like you could definitely get a lot of mileage out of that too.
I am 100% with you. Oh, sorry, Destin, go ahead.
No, Stella just reminded me of something the stories that they could pull from. The first book, Mass Effect Revelation, is all about Anderson and Saren and how that relationship soured. That's the ticket right there. Tell that story. I've read that book. It's awesome. It like gives you so much more context about the Mass Effect universe, why Anderson is the way he is, about Saren in the beginning. And Saren is such a perfect villain. I don't think I've ever seen a better villain than Saren in a video game, and the conclusion to his story. So yeah, definitely there are great stories that they can pull from.
I read that book before Mass Effect 1 came out, and it only made Mass Effect 1 better. It enhanced the whole thing. Stella, I'm 100% with you. I think that's the way to go, because the trilogy is so beloved, other than the ending of 3, obviously, and the controversy there, but that's you just have to you have the benefit of hindsight to do a better job on the TV version. But yeah, to fold in, Destin, your thought on that prequel book too. So you could easily have at least 4 seasons of television if you adapt that prequel book, and then 1, 2, and 3 as individual seasons. And these games are meaty enough where maybe it's even multiple seasons, especially if it's only like 8 episodes a season. Maybe, the first game is 2 seasons. Maybe it's like the first season of Mass Effect 1 is up until you become a Spectre, and then maybe the next season is the rest of Mass Effect 1. But yeah, I think that Last of Us template could work really, really well with Mass Effect, and again, if it's successful, you've got at least 3-4 seasons easily in the bank there, because it's not like any of these things are going to go on for 10 seasons. I mean, Halo was canceled after 2. Witcher, I think, was supposed to go 7, and I don't even know if Amazon's have they said if they're gonna. I think aren't they killing it after like 1 more season, like season 5 or something. So these adaptations aren't necessarily long for this world, which isn't the worst thing. So, yeah, if we get like a 3-4 season run out of adapting the Mass Effect trilogy and maybe that prequel book as well, I think that would be awesome. Mr. Hyam, your thoughts on Amazon adapting Mass Effect?
I'm a little bit more hesitant to embrace the idea of adapting Mass Effect to live action. Not to say that they can't do it. I think they just need to have a very clear vision of what they're going to adapt from that world, as Destin had mentioned and Stella had mentioned. Because when I think about the most important aspect of Mass Effect, it's like, yeah, it's a great story, but it's a great story because I am Commander Shepard in that world. I make the decisions. My relationships with those characters are my own, and I dictate how I go about those certain things. Being Paragon or Renegade, that's such an integral part to how you experience Mass Effect, and obviously you can't do that through a show. So I think there are a lot of decisions they need to make with how they tell that story in order for it to be successful. And Amazon, I feel like hit or miss. The Yakuza franchise is very near and dear to me, and the Yakuza adaptation was not great. And again, Yakuza, the story of Kazuma Kiryu is very, very it's enrapturing. But part of the Yakuza experience is, hey, I'm living in Kamurocho and I am engaging in these one-off side quests where goofy things happen, and then these really heartfelt moments that are kind of like my own because I experienced them through the lens of Kazuma Kiryu. And the same thing, you can extend that to Commander Shepard. But again, there's so much in the Mass Effect universe. One of the things I loved about each Mass Effect was pulling up the codex and just listening to that guy talk to me about the things in the codex. And I'm like, man, I think about how can you explain a lot of that with the same impact through a show? Of course, there's a lot of things that they can do, but it's I'll say it's probably intimidating for them because there's so much to pull from. But if they can pull from the right things and kind of frame it in a way that is compelling as television, it could work. Because I feel like a straight adaptation might not hit quite as much when you have things like Battlestar Galactica and Star Trek already out there who tell such in-depth and captivating stories about space exploration, the human's place and alien relationships. Things like that have been told through such great television already. So what would a Mass Effect TV show do differently from that? That's kind of, I guess, the big question. And I would love to see what they ultimately come up with.
Yeah, I guess go ahead, Destin.
I was just looking at the literature that's already out there. So we have Revelation, which is the story of Anderson and Garrus, or not Garrus, Saren. We have Mass Effect Foundation, which is the story about who was the green guy everybody blanking on his name.
Thane.
Thank you.
Oh my
That's the purple guy.
We have Mass Effect Evolution, which is the story of the first time humans jump through the Mass Effect relay. That sets them up for a cool build-up into a big dramatic thing. There's Mass Effect Retribution, which focuses on the Elusive Man and his integration into the storyline and how he came to power. And there's Mass Effect Ascension, which focuses on Tali Zora and how that integrates within the story of biotic, people getting biotics and how children were basically experimented on. And all of those vignettes, each one of those could either be an episode or a full-on season just exploring one of those characters. And I think they have more than enough content to pull from to tell something compelling without betraying our memories of the series.
Yeah. So yeah, it really just depends on what they pull from, honestly.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, Justin, you would feel much better if Drew Karpyshyn were involved in this.
Well, he wrote most of the books that I just referenced.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, he's busy with that. I forget what's that cool sounding Mass Effect like game where it's like Mass Effect meets Interstellar.
Is it Exodus?
Thank you. Yes, I couldn't remember the name of that game. That was a Game Awards reveal a couple years ago now. Looked really cool. It sounds if what's on paper translates into the game, that'll be great. But yeah, that's his new project. But yeah, I mean, we've seen we've seen it go well adapting things like with The Last of Us, and then it's been kind of as Michael said, kind of a mixed bag if you don't do a direct adaptation. Fallout was great. That wasn't a direct adaptation of any game. That was just really understanding that universe and telling an original story with it. And then on the other side, Halo, right? Like, didn't exactly adapt the game, didn't just one-to-one the game story. They kind of went out on their own timeline, and it didn't, it got canceled. It didn't end up working. So we shall see what the folks at Amazon have in store for us with Mass Effect. Speaking of game-based live-action things, surprising no one, Ubisoft's live-action Splinter Cell movie that had Tom Hardy attached to it for a long, long time is officially not happening. Splinter Cell is cursed. I'm going to be the guy. I'm always the guy that will go to bat for Splinter Cell. So this, if you're wondering, like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? When did they announce a Splinter Cell movie with Tom Hardy? Over a decade ago, November. It was 2012. 2012, when they were still making Splinter Cell games, they announced the Splinter Cell movie with Tom Hardy. At the time, he'd just come off of being Bane in The Dark Knight Rises. He was going to play Sam Fisher. Then a couple of years after that, Doug Liman, the director of Edge of Tomorrow, was brought in to direct. But since then, apart from vague quotes about how things were going from the people involved, nothing concrete emerged. And now, producer Basil Ivanek, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, has confirmed that the Splinter Cell movie is dead. In an interview with The Direct, Ivanek called the film, quote, one of the ones that got away. Here's a full quote. That movie would have been awesome, Ivanek said. Just couldn't get it right, script-wise, budget-wise, but it was going to be great. We had a million different versions of it, but it was going to be hardcore and awesome. That's one of the ones that got away, which is really sad. Mr. Hyam, did you, like me, is your neck needing a neck brace from the whiplash you got listening to that quote?
Yeah, kind of. I'm like, we had a million ideas. It was going to be awesome. Like, which one of the million ideas? That doesn't sound like y'all were really.
Doesn't sound like it was that great, does it?
Yeah, it's like, you should probably decide on one of those million ideas before you say, this is going to be hardcore and awesome. Like, what does that even mean, dog? Yeah, I mean, I would love a Splinter Cell adaptation, but from that perspective, like, maybe it's better that we kind of didn't get whatever they were doing. So, man, I miss Splinter Cell though.
It is a cursed property. I'm convinced. I mean, the last game was excellent. Blacklist was really good.
Yeah, and guess when that came out, Ryan? 11 years ago.
I know. That game came out. That was at the end of the 360 generation.
Yeah.
That game wasn't even on Xbox One. That was an Xbox 360 game.
Yeah.
We have not had Splinter Cell in over a generation now, and yet Ubisoft keeps I want to use an inappropriate term. They just keep torturing us by putting Sam as cameos in other Ubisoft things, and Third Echelon is in
Siege,
X Defiant, and
yeah.
it's just like, oh man, you guys. And allegedly they're remaking Splinter Cell 1. There's been zero evidence since the announcement where they shared 3 pieces of concept art.
They said they're remaking 1. We'll
yeah,
see.
they said it. They said it for sure.
I'm worried about Ubisoft existing in 5 years, honestly, with all the legal drama that they're going through right now, and the fact that their staff is on strike, and the issues with the French government and a potential hostile takeover. Like, there's bigger problems than the fact that the Tom Hardy Splinter Cell movie is Splinter Cell might not be, or not Ubisoft